MegaPodTastic. Good morning, MegaPodlings. Krazy Joe here. I'm back at the AMC and I'm about to see Happy Death Day to You. Now, I'll tell you, I wanted to see the original, heard it was really, really good, and I never had a chance to watch it. I picked up the DVD, or the Blu-ray actually, just hadn't had a chance to get to it, and I went and saw the new Halloween movie that came out this past October, and I saw the trailer for Happy Death Day to You. Wouldn't you know it, they put a spoiler from the first movie in the trailer for the sequel. Really turned me off and made me think like, well, I really wanted to watch the first one, but this has kind of sapped my desire to see it. I finally forced myself to watch the first one and was really annoyed because I knew where it was going the whole time, thanks to that terrible trailer for Happy Death Day to You. But it was good. I just wish I hadn't known what was coming. Terrible marketing on Universal's part. But here we are. Let's go check out the second one. I did like the first one. Hope this one's just as good. So let's talk about Happy Death Day to You. As I stated at the theater, I walked into this movie a little angry. I don't know who's to blame. It's probably not the filmmakers. It's probably someone at the studio level. But the trailer they put together for Happy Death Day to You really upset me because it needlessly, and I do stress the word needlessly, gave away the ending of the original. And it didn't have to. It really served no purpose being in that trailer. It didn't make the trailer better. It could have easily been... You could have done that trailer without giving away that crucial piece of information of the original. And you have to assume when you're making a sequel that a lot of people who did not see the original are going to watch the original before the sequel comes out because they want to be caught up. Now, Happy Death Day is one of those movies that got really good word of mouth, and people said, "Hey, this is really good. This is really good." So I picked it up without having seen it, and my intent was always watch this movie before the sequel comes out. But then that trailer came out. Huge, massive spoiler in the trailers. They tell you who the killer is. And my enthusiasm was just immediately sapped. I didn't really want to watch the movie. But I did. It was good. Would have been much better if I didn't know who the killer was. So if you have not seen Happy Death Day, and you have not seen the trailers for Happy Death Day to You, don't watch those trailers. Just go see the first movie and avoid those trailers. Those were terrible trailers. Terrible. Shameful, actually. I don't know what Universal was thinking there. But you know what you know. Now I know who the killer is. I watch Happy Death Day for the first time. Surprisingly, it was a good movie. It was a good movie. It had problems. For example, at the beginning of the movie, I hated the main character. She came across as very unlikable. But that was part of her arc. She was supposed to be that way. And as the movie goes on, you warm up to her. You find out why she's the way she is, why she does the things she does. And she becomes a much more sympathetic character as the movie goes on. Now, it's the old time loop. It's the old Groundhog Day scenario where we're just experiencing the same day over and over again. It brings us to Happy Death Day to You. Now, I'm going to try to keep this fairly spoiler-free. I'm certainly not going to tell you who the killer is or things like that. I wouldn't do to you what Universal did to me on the first one. But the second one, this is what's interesting. This is supposedly a quote-unquote horror franchise. But I'm here to tell you, Happy Death Day to You is, in my opinion, not a horror film. I would never call this movie a horror film. I would call it a sci-fi film. I believe that they made a sci-fi film. Number one, it's rated PG-13, as was the first one. The gore and the death scenes are not graphic. They're not gory. They weren't in the first one either. They're PG-13 death scenes. And it's very tame. Extremely tame. But the driving force of this sequel is answering the question, why did this time loop happen? Because the first one never gets into that. The first one never gets into the why is her day resetting every time she dies. Second one does. In fact, it's the main plot point. Why is this happening? How do we stop it from happening? And they add also the other, another little wrinkle, alternate dimensions. So this one deals not only with the time loop, but with alternate dimensions. So I would argue that this is a sci-fi movie that just happens to have a killer on the loose. Ultimately, this is a good sequel. It's a sequel to a movie that doesn't really seem to lend itself to a sequel. Because when you get to the end of Happy Death Day, the way that I'm assuming you saw it, but I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the way Happy Death Day ends, it doesn't really seem like the door's wide open for a sequel. This is a well-done film. It's a well-done sequel. But I don't know if horror fans are really going to go for it. If you're a hardcore horror fan, and I'm a fan of many genres, sci-fi is probably my favorite genre. And I like horror too, but sci-fi is my favorite. Though sci-fi and horror are very closely related. I always say that they are two sides of the same coin. They're very, very, very closely connected. I never understand people who like one but not the other, because to me, they're kind of the same thing. For example, let's take Alien. Alien is on a spaceship in the future, and there's an alien. It's a sci-fi movie. But it's also a killer alien who's killing people. It's a horror movie, too. So it's both. Frankenstein. Frankenstein's a horror movie, but it's about a scientist who's doing experiments to bring back the dead. It's also a sci-fi movie. Sci-fi and horror, they just go hand in hand. They really are, I think, very closely related genres. But I know a lot of hardcore horror fans who they like horror. That's what they like. They want horror. That's what they want. And I don't know if they're going to be satisfied with this movie, because this is not, in my estimation, a horror movie. I see it as a sci-fi film that just happens to have a killer. So I don't know if it's going to be satisfying to the hardcore horror fan. But personally, I liked it. I liked it a lot. It might be better than the first one, because well, to me, being a sci-fi fan first and foremost, it goes into those realms much more than the first one does. So that might appeal to me. But I'm giving this movie a big recommendation. Go check out Happy Death Day to You. If you liked the first one, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think you'll like what they have up their sleeves. Keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.